Senator Sterle.
Thank you, Mr Acting Deputy President. Mr Acting Deputy President, be a oxymoron to say that this topic about Qantas certainly is a motive, but I think what we can take from this for anyone listening out there is you wouldn't find a senator in this chamber that is opposed to seeing a healthy and vibrant Qantas. But before I do go to the Qantas Sale Amendment Bill 2014, I just think it's important that I wish to make a few personal comments. Mr Acting Deputy President, it comes as no surprise out of the 76 senators in this building today, there are two who can lay claim to being very, very close to Qantas through our previous lives as organisers, and I never ascended the great office of National President and Branch Secretary as you did, Mr Acting Deputy Chair, but you more so than me speak with authority because you actually were an aviation worker, and I'm getting yelled at by Senator Billick. I'm actually talking about senators who have had active involvement with Qantas and Qantas employees, and from very, very warm, wonderful achievements that we collectively through the TW achieved on behalf of our members at Qantas over the years. And I think Senator Gallagher mentioned to me since 1952 or 56. But I do have to just take a little bit of umbrage from Senator Rhiannon, because if you listened to Senator Rhiannon, one would think that it was Senator Rhiannon, Mr Acting Deputy President, that may have been standing in the freezing cold tarmacs at 5 o'clock in the morning like you and I used to. You would think it might have been Senator Rhiannon, who was that close to Qantas workers, who would be called to the catering centre at midnight on a Sunday night, as I once was, because of an industrial accident. But anyway, I think they're very good of heart, but you and I, Mr Acting Deputy President, can speak with authority when it comes to representing
Sorry, Senator Sterle. Point of order, Senator
Point of order, just on clarity. I was happy to acknowledge Senator Cameron and certainly happy to acknowledge Senator Sterle for his contribution with the workforce of Qantas.
There is no point of order, Senator Rhiannon. Senator Sterle.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr Acting Deputy President. But let's go to the heart of this amendment, or this sale bill. And it was on the 27th of February 2014 that Qantas posted an underlying before-tax loss of some $252 million and a statutory loss after tax of no less than $235 million for the 6 months ending on the 31st of December 2013. We should also note that Qantas CEO Alan Joyce announced the Qantas Transformation Program, designed to achieve $2 billion in cost reductions over 3 years. I'm trying not to vomit as I speak. This would mean the loss of 5,000 full-time positions over the next 3 years, 1,500 from management and non-operational roles, and the closure of the Avalon maintenance base. This transformation also outlined that the wage freeze for executives, that'll bring a tear to the eye, wouldn't it, that was implemented in 2013 would continue and would be extended to all Qantas Group employees. Also on top of this, Mr Acting Deputy President, Qantas confirmed that 50 aircraft would be deferred or sold, while Qantas Group's planned capital expenditure net of operating lease liability will be reduced to $800 million in both the 2015 and 2016 financial years, with a total reduction of $1 billion. Yep, right, okay. So what we do know, Mr Acting Deputy President, around the same time, we read in the papers, I don't know if you had any involvement, but I certainly did have any involvement, no direct involvement from any Qantas people. They avoid me like the plague. And for obvious reasons, and if it's not obvious, I'll certainly let people know further in my contribution. They were trawling the hallways of Parliament here seeking help, seeking financial help, seeking debt guarantees. I don't know what else, it's all up to the papers to report. And what we do know, they had got themselves in a tremendous, and I don't use that word in the positive sense, a tremendous pickle. And I'm going to say it very clearly here, Mr Acting Deputy President, and I believe the reasons. I understand the cost of fuel from my trucking background. I understand international pressures, but I also understand, or I can acknowledge, or I can see bad business decisions lead to some shocking outcomes. And I will stand here as an individual who happens to be a Labor senator who happened to chair the inquiry that we did, and so there was terrible business decisions made by Qantas senior management. This is why we are, or they are faced with such a debacle with massive losses. And what do? They want to slash jobs. So, Mr Acting Deputy President, we did an inquiry. We called it, it went through the chamber here. The Senate was keen to put it through and give us the ability to inquire further to see what else we could find out, what was going on. And it was named the Qantas Future as a strong national carrier supporting jobs in Australia under the Rural and Regional Affairs and Transport References Committee. And as I said, we received 12 submissions and we held a public inquiry in Sydney. I do concur with Senator Whish-Wilson. It was rushed, unfortunately. And what we did, I just want to go through the terms of reference so those listening out there can understand the commitment that was coming from the Senate to actually dig deep and see how we could help. The terms of reference, Mr Acting Deputy President, was 1. The committee must consider what initiatives can be taken by government to ensure Qantas remains a strong national carrier supporting aviation jobs in Australia, including A, a debt guarantee, B, an equity stake, and C, other forms of support consistent with wider policy settings. Part 2 of the terms and references state that in conducting the inquiry, the committee should consider A, any national security, skills, marketing, tourism, emergency assistance and other benefits provided by a majority Australian-owned Qantas. B, the level and forms of government support received by other international airlines operating to and from Australia. C, the ownership structures of other international airlines operating to and from Australia. D, the potential impact on Australian jobs arising from the government's plan to repeal Part 3 of the Qantas Sale Act 1992, and E, any related matters. Now, at the inquiry, I just want to let the Senate know of who actually attended, and it did go for all day. We could have gone all week on this, but we had Mr Ian Thomas, who was a managing consultant with CAPA Consulting. We had Mr Shane O'Brien, Director of Aviation from the Transport Workers Union. We had Mr Matthew Rocks, National Aviation Coordinator from the Transport Workers Union. Mr Anthony Vincent Sheldon, National Secretary, Transport Workers Union. Ms Linda White, Assistant National Secretary of the Senator Billick, Australian Services Union. Mr Stephen Pavinas, the Federal Secretary of the Licensed Aircraft Maintenance Engineers Association. And then we had the stars of the show at the end of the hearing, who were very, very keen to talk to, Mr Gareth Evans, Chief Financial Officer from Qantas Airways, Mr Andrew Finch, General Counsel of Qantas Airways, Ms Jane Hrdlicka, CEO Jetstar, and Mr Alan Joyce of Qantas Airways. What came out of it, Mr Acting Deputy President, what I certainly took out as the chair, was that Qantas could not tell us exactly where these 5,000 jobs would be peeled from as part of their announcement. They certainly, when I asked Mr Joyce could he guarantee that there would be no more job losses, there was, and as he actually said no, he couldn't guarantee. So you didn't have to be Einstein to work out, or I figured out, that Qantas have got no idea where this is going to end. So what do? They rush off for the Sales Act. They want to pull the Sales Act. The sad part about this, Mr Acting Deputy President, is I'm proud to stand here and actually stand up for Australian jobs. I really don't care who throws what at me. This is what brought me into this place, standing up for Australian jobs, standing up for Australian workers. I want a vibrant, profitable national carrier. It gives me no greater thrill when I'm overseas to see the red kangaroo, the white kangaroo on the red tail. And it gives me no greater thrill to know that some nearly 30,000 Australians, I think it's down to 27,000 now at the latest count, I think, Mr Acting Deputy President, are employed by Qantas. And I have no fear in saying that Qantas has been a very, very good corporate citizen. But I also want to echo that I've had my challenges with Qantas too, Mr Acting Deputy President, representing transport workers at Perth, and representing those workers not only in the catering section, but I will get to that, but actually being part of enterprise bargaining agreements and seeing good working conditions and wages flowing out to Qantas workers. But when all was said and done for the inquiry, I'll get back to it, Mr Acting Deputy President, that you and I and Senator Sue Lyons from Perth, Labor senators. We're joined by Senator Ian McDonald, Senator Peter Whish-Wilson, Senator Sean Edwards, Senator Rhiannon and Senator Back, and of course Senator Xenophon. But it was in the opposition senators' very, very clear view that there were a number of things that we believed the government should do to protect Qantas, to give Qantas every opportunity to be successful and to continue to employ nearly 30,000 Australians. We put out 2 recommendations to those that are listening. We recommended and strongly recommend the committee, from the committee, that paragraph 7 in brackets 1AA and 7(1)(b) of the Qantas Sale Act 1992 be repealed while leaving the remainder of Part 3 of the Qantas Sale Act 1992 intact. It's been talked about, I'm not going to go into it. And we also strongly recommended the opposition senators that the committee recommends the Commonwealth Government provide a debt guarantee to Qantas. What we do know is that fell on deaf ears from a government not only wanting to kill our manufacturing industry through Holden and Toyota, challenging to leave the country, and as Senator Ludwig said, leaving SPCR Mona to sit out there and hang. Now, Mr Acting Deputy President, in my short time that I have left, I want to share a few things with senators and those who may be listening. And I know that there's been personal attacks on Qantas management and that sort of stuff, but I think there's some very important figures that need to be on the record. Now, you see, the chairman of Qantas, Lee Clifford AO, now he was appointed chairman November 2007, and at the time the Qantas share price was $5.71. And the Qantas market capital was valued at $11 billion. Now, Mr Clifford is still the chairman of Qantas, and its current share price, as you've heard, is $1.24, with a current market capital of $2.69 billion. So what is that? Very quickly about $8.5 billion less than what it was when he took the reins. Now, I do want to share this too for those that are listening. I happened to be, through you, Mr Acting Deputy President, at the Qantas AGM in Sydney, in the 3rd row, with Tony Sheldon, the National Secretary of the TWU. And it was there in Sydney in October 2011, when I sat there and looked at the board while they were blowing wind about how great they were and how they'd rerun for election and got elected and gave themselves a pay rise. Don't worry about that. They gave themselves a pay rise. I'm sitting in the 3rd row thinking, oh, 3rd row, well, fair enough, I'm not against pay rises. Good on you, tremendous. It was no less than 48 hours later, or 24 hours later, Mr Acting Deputy President, through the CEO, Mr Alan Joyce, that he held the gun to the country's head and announced that he would be grounding the airline. 24 hours after these people had granted themselves massive pay rises. Because why? Because the TWU members employed around Australia had 2 4-hour stoppages, I think, and the pilots were wearing red ties. Mr Acting Deputy President, it grieves me, it absolutely grieves me when you have a company crawling around the hallways here in the ministerial wing wanting the taxpayers to bail out shocking business decisions while rewarding themselves with pay rises, but when it all turns to custard, aren't they wonderful because they won't take their pay rises? Now, I just want to share this. This is really important that people out there understand the sort of money we're talking about. Lee, I'm going to go to Lee Clifford, AO, Mr Lee Clifford. While he's out here sending Mr Joyce down here to try and get taxpayers' dollars to resurrect a company that's suffering badly through bad business decisions, is on no less than, all up, $635,000. Now, not bad for a few meetings you chair a year. There's other names here, I won't have the time to go through them. But when you look at non-executive directors on $249,000, $271,000, $310,000, $309,000, the list goes on. Mr Acting Deputy President, they've conned this mob. They con this mob over here because they have to have these high wages while the company's spiralling down. What do? We go out and blame the unions. Let's go out and blame the mums and dads. I don't see them as union members, I see them as people. I see them as members of the community who proudly wear that Qantas shirt or that Qantas scarf or that Qantas dress. And I've got to tell you, Mr Acting Deputy President, through my years of organising through the Qantas flight catering in Perth, not only Qantas flight catering, but Qantas freight, Qantas ramp services, Mr Acting Deputy President, your old stomping ground, baggage handlers, aircraft cleaners. And not only that, in Perth I used to represent the Qantas lounge workers, where that mob over there don't mind coughing before they jump on an aeroplane, Mr Acting Deputy President, but they don't stand up for them when they're all outsourced. They don't give a damn, as long as they're all right. Mr Acting Deputy President, I know time is really tight and I could go on hour after hour on this. I'm so proud to say that one thing about that side over there, they rolled over on part 3. They rolled over and realised that what we've been saying since 2009, give Qantas the opportunity, that's fair enough, if you want to increase foreign ownership from an individual or a foreign airline, but as sure as God made little green apples, this side of the parliament will never, ever, ever sacrifice Australian jobs so that mob over there can duck and hide. It's about time people out there understood. They don't give a fat rat's backside about Australian jobs. They'll listen to the senior management. They'll listen to the $635,000 a year CEO. Oh, don't worry about that. While they grovel around finding every excuse to challenge Australian manufacturing and challenge Australian companies to send jobs off overseas. On that, Mr Acting Deputy President, I will leave it at that. We will not be supporting their bill.